that sounds
25
good.
in. All right, so let's jump now 25 minutes into the lesson, and we're up to stage 6, which is the practice phase of the lesson. Right, tell us about this, please, Craig.
Yes. I want kids to embed this stuff. I want them to work independently to do so. So I had a few questions, a few different sets of questions ready, depending on the outcome. The ideal for me was they were going to answer these sort of disparate set of questions that I just grabbed off Corbett, that involve negatives and positives and numbers in front of coefficients, and I want them to work on it. Well, I don't think there's anything novel here. The only thing I would add is that what I would do is after 90 seconds, maybe, put the answers to the first 2 questions up on the board, perfectly modelled. That does 2 things. One, it's a point of reference if someone is still stuck. Because if they're stuck up for 90 seconds, it's okay to be stuck up for that amount of time. You can still think about things and all this. If you're still stuck, look, here's an example again. Here's what we're doing today. Also, here's what your book should be looking like. Also, if you've got something wrong and it isn't this, please let me know. I don't want to wait to the end of the independent work phase to show you the answers for you to realise you've got stuff wrong and then for us to move on. Because if all's gone right in the stage beforehand, there shouldn't be many errors happening. So if we can pick them up as early as possible, the sooner the better.
Right, flipping heck. Okay. So a couple of things on this. Kids are writing in their books. You are putting up a few answers early on so the kids can check. I think that's really smart. You don't want kids practicing the wrong thing. And what about the answers to everything else? Where's the kind of check for understanding of the practice happening?
So that'll just, after 6 minutes-ish, all the other answers will come up. But it's probably the case that I'm drip feeding the answers. I'm circulating the room after a bit of time. There's something I've heard with the 3-30-30 rule. Sort of stand at the front for 3 minutes, bit of circulating, and then back to the front again for 30, and sort of continue on that. So I'll do a bit of circulating to get a sense of where people are at, pace people are going at, and I will try and put a few answers up, so more over time, so that by the time all the answers come up at the end, there's not much marking to do, but being wary that kids aren't going, oh, we're just going to put the answers up in a bit, so I'll just sit back, and it's just towing that line. So I'll try and put, what I might do is where the questions change a bit, where a negative is introduced or a coefficient is introduced, is skip a bunch of questions and then put that answer up. So it might be questions 1, 2, and then 6 and 7, or something could displayed during that phase, and then all the answers will come up on the slide over, which should be a case of students just ticking the correct thing because of all the stuff that's happened previously. If there's a couple of mistakes, hopefully they can spot what's gone wrong, and they have a bit of time for that self-correction.
Okay, interesting. Right. So a couple of things on this. So something I do, I don't know if this is good or bad, is I will certainly, I'm a massive fan of giving kids access to early answers. I think I'm also a fan of giving kids access to the answers just generally, so that kids can kind of, self-check, not practice the wrong things and so on. But one thing I like to do sometimes is I'll hold fire on the answer to kind of a critical question, like you said, perhaps where a coefficient changes or it's the first one with a negative. And I'll do a quick whole class check for understanding on mini whiteboard. So I'll say, I know you're all up to different points or whatever. Can we all just have a look at question 6? If you've done it, just copy your answer down. If you haven't done it, can you just have a think and put it on your mini whiteboard? 3, 2, 1, show me. Just so I get that, again, to use your phrase, the artifact, just so I'm getting that regular data back and I'm not having to make any assumptions. So sometimes I'll do that for a critical question, if that makes sense. I don't know if you have any reflection on that before I ask you my next one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, a couple more. When you're circulating, so again, something I've started doing, but I don't do it as much as I should. I have the answers with me, just so I can quickly kind of check a bit better. Do you do that kind of sometimes, all the time, never? How does that fit in with you?
When I have the time
that's
to,
it, isn't it? Yeah.
I 100% would. I think with these questions, you can look at them, and it takes as much time to look at the question from the board, because these are sort of
Yeah.
one step things. And that thing around sharing all the answers, 100% I would do at this point. If students don't want to use the grid method, I'm not insisting that they do, which means they're in danger of only having the answer in their book. So if they have to write working out, I have no issue sharing all the answers straight away. But if they might just have copied it, I'm not going to do that, because I just want to know that it is their work.
Yeah. Okay, this makes perfect sense. Couple other questions. How are kids working here? Is it independent? Is it silence? Can they collaborate? How does that play out?
There should be no need for them to be talking.
Oh.
If I've done so for everything that's been set up, I want them learning. I want them doing all the thinking. So silent.
Interesting. Okay. So here's a big one. I genuinely don't know what you're going to say about this. So this is exciting for me. So again, I'm very lucky these days, get to visit lots of schools. One thing I see a lot of is lessons being predominantly kind of pretty well taught, but the kids doing nothing above and beyond fluency or procedures. So the teacher will be really good at kind of modelling, how to do a procedure, check for understanding, kids do a load of practice of that. And things get a bit harder and so on and so forth. But is it the practice phase of your lesson where kids are challenged to do other things, what may be lumped under the banner of problem solving? Or does that come later, or is it a separate lesson? Where does that come into play, and what does it look like?
That's a great question, and I've got a whole bit where I'm going to talk about that, because we're doing so well for time. That was coming up. So I was going to talk about after this. I was just going to end
of course.
Which wouldn't be the end of the lesson time-wise, but it would be another cycle similar to what had already been discussed. And then I want to spend a bit of time talking about that.
Yeah, of course.
Like where those AOT,
Okay,
AOT
so let's
stuff comes in. So
do that. Leave that as a teaser. Listeners love this, so we'll pause the problem solving. So in this particular lesson, would it be fair to say the practice was kind of fluency practice, because this is what we were trying
it's AO1.
Maybe a few little twisties in there and stuff, but predominantly this is okay. Fine. So the kids are doing that. Let me see if I've got this right. Eventually, all the answers come up on the board. Kids are marking it themselves. Bit of green pen, purple pen.
Yep.
I'm guessing you'll be loved. That'll be the key thing. That'll be the key thing in this lesson. Get the colour of the pen right. And then I'm guessing you're saying to the kids, if anyone's confused on anything, kind of stick your hand up and let me know or whatever. Okay. Is there anything else to add about that?
I realise I shouldn't not on the audio podcast format, because only you can see it.
Anything else to add on the practice phase there, Chris?
No, but just that this can vary so much depending on the content. So this is an example. This isn't all my lessons. This is this lesson. Nothing to add. But this,
Perfect.
Yeah.
For the first time in podcast history, I'm now switching to my second piece of paper here for notes. This has never happened before. Okay, so let's go for section 7 then. So just to recap, we've had do now, number 1, number 2, exposition, 3, modelling, 4, check for understanding, 5, responsive teaching, 6 is practice. Does practice last however long it takes to then leave you sufficient time to wrap up the lesson? Would that be fair, or
It's yes,
something like that? Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's flexible. It's not. I wouldn't go in with we've got 5 minutes with a preset timer embedded into PowerPoint. I would give myself flexibility there based on all the things that teachers need to consider.